Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Front Office Show. It is Friday, and that means it's
Front Office Friday!
Let's go. Our first Front Office Friday since coming back from Las Vegas. The last time you said that, Keith, we were actually in a studio in Las Vegas, but that's okay. We'll still take any kind of a Front Office Friday we can get.
Little less self-conscious than I think waking up half of the win with a loud scream at like 10 a.m. on a Friday morning in Vegas, which might as well be like waking people up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. anywhere else. So it was fun, but yeah, we had a blast. It's we had a great time out there. The studio incredible. It was super fun to record with you in person and hang out and do all the things we usually do, but just do it in person. And we had a blast. But it's good to be home too, right, with the family and everything, and back in the comfortable environment and all that. But yeah, it was awesome. I can't wait till we get to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, well, they're just a little peek behind the curtain, but the audio guys at Blue Wire Studios, they had to adjust on the fly to the Front Office Friday yell, and I like that they made you test it a few times before we actually started the show. So you had to kind of demonstrate the volume of the Front Office Friday yell, and they actually encouraged you to get even louder with it, which I thought was fantastic. But you're right, it is nice to be home. Thoughts certainly with those media members that are still there. I want to say, isn't John Hollinger doing wire to wire this year?
I don't know if it's full wire to wire, but at this point it might as well be. And he was there like 2 days ahead too of Summer League. So it's that's madness. That's way too long to be there. I saw that message as well. Yeah.
Smoky Settings says Sean Davis is still sleeping. Legend has it. Yes, indeed. If you want that whole story, go check out the LakersNation.com podcast. I explained what happened to Sean Davis in Las Vegas.
Sean missed a good meal too.
He really did. He really did.
Even if I was a fish out of water as the lone Boston guy in the room, but I'll take it.
Well, we didn't spend too much time talking Lakers. We spent a lot of time talking everything else, food, of course, Las Vegas, all the other stuff that was going on. I think
fantastic.
Edward's got a pretty good question here. Why wait till October to start the season? Right? Just start the season. Start the season now. Let's go.
Yeah, you could. I mean, that would be something if we just started now. But yeah, I need a little break. I'm ready for.
You've got your vacation coming up.
Yeah, vacation in 10 days. 10 days. I will be on a cruise ship and disconnected from this whole world. No, I will not be paying for internet on the cruise, and no, there will not be live shows or anything like that while I am away. I'm going to step away and enjoy some downtime. But yeah, it's I mean, they tried NBA basketball in the summertime, and nobody really liked it being played in July and August. So I don't think we're going to see any kind of change to the NBA calendar anytime soon.
No. They're definitely not. I think it's just there's that excitement now in the air from, hey, we saw these moves happen, and let's go. Now Miami Heat fans are probably saying, no, wait, we need to get Dame first,
right?
Then you could start the season. But there's always that buzz coming out of Summer League. And then that somber reminder that, oh man, we got to wait like 2 months now until it actually really gets going. And that's just to get to training camp. So
now,
it's good though that we do get a little bit of a break and we get to take vacations and that sort of stuff. So our families appreciate that.
There's a question in the chat that says, are you going to cover the World Cup? Meaning the basketball World Cup. And yeah, we will. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about it to some extent. I don't know that we'll be doing live shows because it's in it's at dark 100 hours here on the East Coast when these games start. But we'll definitely talk about what's been going on in the World Cup, probably more as it relates to Team USA, obviously, and then the NBA guys who are playing, in the World Cup. But yeah, it'll be a part of the thing we cover in August when it starts up.
Especially because there's not going to be anything going on in August anyway, most likely, unless, some of these trade demands, we may still be talking about the Dames of our lives at the end of August. I guess that's possible. But most likely it's pretty quiet around that time. And I think by that point we're going to be so starved for basketball that we're going to be thrilled to talk about the basketball World Cup.
We may be spending hours breaking down each World Cup game by that point because it'll be, it's funny. People ask, like, are you ready for a break? And it's, to be completely honest, I am, but I only need like a week, and then I'm ready to
Mm-hmm.
get right back into it. I start to really miss it, very very soon. So it's it really is a spot where it's you want to break, but I love it. I love basketball in all forms, and
Mm-hmm.
it gets there, and it's before anybody says it, yes, we understand the WNBA is going on. I watch some WNBA.
Yep.
I don't know enough about it to comment on it intelligently, and I generally try to avoid things that I can't comment about and add anything of value to. So we'll kind of see from there.
Right, right. I mean, the NBA is our thing, and so we'll be missing NBA basketball. Yes, that does
Right.
help to scratch the itch a little bit seeing WNBA,
Yeah.
but you're right. You get like a week or so when I start jonesing for basketball again, and I'm like, come
Yep.
on, let's go. Let's get into some of these questions that are coming in. Somebody said, "What do you guys think of the Pistons off season thus far?" It's been a little bit of an interesting off season for the Pistons, but I'll tell you this: I like just at the top hiring Monty Williams. I think
Yeah.
they had to overpay a little bit in order to get him. Winds up being a very rich contract, but now from an organizational perspective, you know who is going to be coach. You paid enough money to say this guy's going to be our coach for a while. So now you know who your guy is going to be, and that gives you at least some stability at the top, on the sidelines, and now moving forward, and you can build up this roster from there.
Agreed. And I am going to drop in the YouTube chat the link to my favorite thing. One of my favorite pieces that I get to write again now every year, which is the Summer League notebook. I emptied out the notebook here. So I'm going to drop that into the chat there if anybody wants to go to that over on Spot Track. You can also find it on my Twitter. And there are some notes in there from the Pistons. And as it relates to their offseason, I like the Joe Harris and Monte Morris pickups for them. I thought those were two guys that it was good for them to get. And one of the things when I asked someone from the Pistons about that, one of the things that they said was, we're trying to be good. And we think these two guys are really going to help us. We needed to add more shooting, and we needed to add a little bit more playmaking. And they did that with those two additions. So I think they've got a pretty well rounded out roster now. It's going to take guys like Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, James Wiseman taking steps forward with their development and their ability. But the Pistons have a chance to be, a fairly decent team here. I think as maybe even as early as this season. If Cunningham is healthy and those veterans hold up.
What do you think about the number of bigs on this Pistons roster? It seems like it's a
Yeah,
little
it's a
bit of
lot.
overkill.
It really is, a lot where, you're in a spot where you've got now, I'm pulling up their depth chart here. We've got Wiseman, Bagley, Stewart, and Duran, who are all going to be, fighting for minutes. And you can kind of make an argument, as a lot of people have, that Bogdanovich is often at his best when he's playing the four
Yeah.
at this point, because he becomes such a tough matchup for a lot of other fours to guard. But it's fine, right? I think for the Pistons, where they're at this point, they are at a development cycle where it is, let's continue to grow and build and go, and we just kind of go from there.
Yeah, exactly. It's about accumulating talent. It'll be interesting to see how they actually dole out the minutes for those guys because they all deserve minutes. You need to see them develop. You need to see kind of what they can turn into, but they're not at a point in their build where you can say just yet like, oh, they've got a log jam at this position and
Yeah,
this is going to be a problem for them to figure out. No, they need to accumulate talent right now, and then everything else is going to fall into place from there as they continue out in their build.
yeah.
Charlie Saturday on a Friday said, very in the weeds question. Why is there a rush to sign late second round picks and undrafted two ways before Summer League? Wouldn't teams want the reference point of seeing how these guys look against pros?
I mean, those guys aren't going to play generally. Now there's a
Yep.
push to not play until you're signed. When teams are drafting guys, the NBA draft is only 2 rounds, so it's only the second round. And when you're picking these guys up, you generally are drafting them with the idea of either they're a straight stash, and we're not signing them anytime soon. They're going to be in the G League stashed, or they're going to be stashed overseas, or the idea is let's get these guys in and have them be a part of the roster right away. And with the new second round pick exception, which 13 players have drafted in the second round have
Mhm.
signed under that already, you're in a spot where you get those guys in, they do their thing, and you have them now for years. So 4 years you're under control with development for those guys. So that's important. Two-way players, same thing. You're not going to get them into summer league and then be like, oh my gosh, this guy stinks. Like you generally you have a pretty good feeling about where they are if you draft them. So that's why they draft them. And then the players and the agents, they don't want their guys playing unless they're actually under contract,
Yep.
because if they get hurt, it becomes a big mess. We all remember EJ Liddell just a year ago at Summer League, before he signed his first contract, got injured with the New Orleans Pelicans. And then the Pelicans still took care of him. They put him on a 2-way deal, which allowed him to stay there. And since then, fully recovered. He's now signed a long-term deal with the Pels. But that's just kind of the way these things go sometimes. So that's part of the reason why you see these guys all getting signed very quickly.
Yeah, look, it's different if it's Victor Wembanyama, right?
Yeah.
If he steps on the floor and tears his ACL in game one, he's still got a contract. The Spurs aren't going to get rid of him. He's sticking around. It would be awful, of course, but he's still getting his money. If you're a second round guy, you're like the 50th pick, and you step on the floor and you blow out your knee and you haven't signed that contract yet, that's not ideal. Particularly if you're a guy that a team said, hey, we want to keep you around, and this isn't just going to be an audition. If we want you long term, you want to sign that contract as quick as you can, just in case something does happen, and so then you don't have to worry about it from there. So Wes said, and off you go is a phrase I now use frequently because of this show in Lakers Nation. As always, I love the content. Thanks for the hard work. That is one of them that has become, I think, part of our just kind of daily use phrases. Mine I use as a transition phrase all the time. People started pointing it out, and it made me realize how much I say it in any event. I'll say that a lot as a transition from topic to topic, without meaning to. But off you go is, and for me that goes back to soccer. That goes back to, because my coaches, my British coaches, back when I was playing, would always say right, off you go, and that was that. And so that kind of has been, since I was 15, 16 years old, a phrase that I use. But yes, it has made its way into our shows too, and I know you say it all the time as well, Keith.
I do, yeah, and it's for the almost exact same reason. It was coaches would set up a drill, and then that was how they would tell you go start the drill. It'd be an off you go. My crutch phrases are that'll be interesting. Like if I don't know how else to end, I just say that. I like to say my transitional phrases. That being said, and then I'll move on to kind of countering whatever point I had just made, as if I'm in a conversation with myself. So yeah, I get it. I get that. I've gotten better on it, but I'll drop in which if I say it quick enough, people think I'm saying yo, and they're like, "That's guy is the most New York accent ever," and I've never lived in New York in my whole life. And the Boston accent does come out on occasion.
When we first started this show, it was the show. The were very prevalent in the show when we first started. But you're right, it has tapered off over the last year or so. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Reps of 4 years of, see, I just did it. now I'm going to be conscious of it.
Yeah, now we're going to do it all the time.
Yeah, 4 years of reps. So we're bound to get better, I would hope, at least. Otherwise, boy, I don't know why people are still watching.
So going back to college, I remember I had a college professor, it was an English class, who said that the reason why we do that is because we're uncomfortable with silence.
Yes.
And so when you're speaking, it's uncomfortable to just stop and let the silence kind of breathe. It's just an uncomfortable feeling. You feel like you have to fill that silence, and so you come up with something to throw in there. Sometimes it's just an or whatever. But that's how we get these kind of phrases that just become part of our show. And yeah.
Sure.
Let's see.
Yeah, there we go.
Nintendo said, "Hi guys, I have a question. Do you know why the Mavs would have been allowed to trade their second round in 2025 for the Grant Williams deal when that pick is owed as protection to the Knicks for the Porzingis trade?"
So what it is it's swap rights. The Celtics have the right to swap win that trade. Which obviously only factors in if Dallas still owns that pick. So if Dallas somehow keeps their pick and then that first rounder they owe to the Knicks turns into 2 seconds, then that would fall out. So there and there's I want to say like 3 other teams caught up in those swap rights as well. So it's that's basically what it is. It's just if it's there, the Celtics can do that if they want to.
Yeah, and we're starting to see the teams get even more creative with swap rights. Like we saw that the trade, what was that one? The Suns and the Grizzlies, and
Yeah.
there's a pick that's like that has swap rights, but the Wizards
Yep.
are mixed into it as well, and so
Yep.
teams are started because they're running out of draft picks to trade. Frankly, they're starting to get
Yeah.
more and more creative
That
with
is
how
part of
these
it.
swap rights are working.
Yep. No, that is definitely part of it.
All right, Mission 86 said, hypothetically, say a team is built heliocentrically around a superstar who will surely be leaving in the next 1 to 2 years. How can they be competitive now and prepare for the future and minimize the drop once that player moves on? So, I mean, the first thing I think of is the Kawhi Raptors, but maybe he's more referencing Luca. Like, is that something
Yeah.
that we could? That's probably the most heliocentric offense that I can think of in the NBA
I
right now.
think the Rockets with James Harden initially, but they
Sure.
didn't have any sense he would be leaving. I think if you know that the player is leaving, you have to make a conscious decision. Are we going to try to develop the next guy to primarily run everything through and have everything based around? And then what you probably do is you start force feeding that player reps. So when they're not sharing the floor with the heliocentric guy while they're still both on the same team, you say, all right, in the 10 minutes the heliocentric guy's off the floor, it's player X's time to shine, right? We're going to give him all the reps and everything's going to revolve around him. Or if you're going to transition into a more balanced offense where you're playing, a lot more movement and touch based and all the other stuff for guys, then you probably start to build some of that in. And what you can also do, we've seen this on occasion with teams if they have a sense that a player might be leaving or just we really want to transition, even if the player's not leaving, but we're trying to transition into that player's fading and getting older, and we want to move into another guy. You'll see a good example of this was the Suns last year. Was we were going to put the ball in Devin Booker's hands even more and kind of take Chris Paul's running of the offense, so dominant with what he does out of the mix, more and more and more to the point where we're changing it up that way. So you do see that sometimes
Yeah.
come into play.
Yeah, and I think it's just the big question is that superstar good enough to
Mhm.
make you contend for a championship in that 2 year window that you've got? And if so, I think you go for it because
Yep.
let's face it, it's not all that often that you can be a contending team. And so if you have that opportunity, you got to go for it, do everything you can. You keep an eye on the future, of course, but do what you can to win now if you've got the chance to do it.
Absolutely. And I'll say this too, just on that last question. There's also the approach of you do what you do and then you rip the band-aid off when you start over, right? It's just all right, that's gone, and now we're going on to something different. And that's kind of a little bit what the Raptors did when Kawhi left. It was all right, now it's the other guy's team, right? It's Fred Van Vliet's team. And Kyle Lowry was obviously still there. Yeah, he was still there. So it's going to be his team. It's going to be Pascal Siakam's team more, and they just transitioned right away. And then sometimes, depending on how it goes, you really just kind of rip the whole thing down and you fully start over. Right? We've seen that so many times in the NBA where it's you trade away the big name guy and you fully start again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's one of the things that we see happen fairly often. Senpai said, who, by the way, hey, great time meeting you in Vegas, Senpai. That was a lot of fun having you in studio and everything over on the Lakers Nation side of things.
Was
Has
that
this
one of the
past?
contest winners?
Yep. Yeah, it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. He said, "Has this past year been the most eventful in NBA history, from trades to trade requests to drama to everything this offseason?"
Uh, I mean, I would say no. We haven't seen super big names move. And we had that summer, the last time, just oddly enough, that we were together in person, where everything went crazy, including earthquakes at Summer
Yep.
League. And Kawhi Leonard changed teams, Paul George changed teams, Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul. Like it all went bananas, very quickly in that period of time. So that's probably the one I would think of that, was a bigger, more eventful change. I would say when LeBron and Bosch joined the Heat, that was a huge change for the league. As far as guys coming into the NBA, I'm going to go way back, but Bird and Magic coming in together, in the same
Yeah.
year as rookies, that was also big for the NBA. So it's recency bias probably does pick up. There's been a lot that's happened. And let's see how the Dame trade and Harden trade play out, and maybe those end up absolutely bonkers and crazy, and we kind of get to the point.
I think that in terms of what's out there, yes, there's a lot that happened. Obviously, there's usually what we hear is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There's a lot more going
Uh-huh.
on behind the scenes, but also a question like this makes me think, what if Twitter was a thing in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah,
Right?
true.
Like, I mean, what happens when Dennis Rodman says, "I'm going to take a few games off," and goes to Vegas if we had today's technology? What is that whole situation? Right? I mean, how much more insane would that time period seem if we had the technology that we do today? So I think that's part of it, is our access to the goings on, within the game and everything is at a different level than what it used to be. So it's hard to say this is the most eventful in NBA history because we get to find out a lot of the stuff that's happening behind the scenes right now, or at least a decent amount of it compared to the 80s, the 90s stuff. Sometimes we didn't know stuff that happened until it showed up in the newspaper a few days later,
Yeah,
or just not
absolutely.
find out
Yeah,
at all.
that's the other difference. Yeah, that's a great call out. Like everything is immediate now. But what's also interesting is related to that. It's immediate now and in our face, but then it's gone within a couple days and replaced
Yeah.
by what's ever next. Whereas to your point, if there was a big move back when I became a huge fan of this stuff, yeah, you'd read about it for days, the same thing kind of happening, and it was there. And now it's kind of all right, what's next, right? And that's good and bad, right? It's good because it keeps us engaged and keeps us moving, but it's not great because you do end up in a spot where it's kind of a little bit like, oh man, like I, missed out on spending time with this one story.
Right. Right. That's for sure. Yeah. The shelf life of a sports story right now,
Hmm.
I mean, 24 hours tops for most,
Yeah.
unless it's something truly like crazy, otherwise, if it's, hey, this player tears their ACL or whatever, why do I keep going to that today? Man, I hope I'm not like speaking that into existence for anybody, but it's something like that. It's like 24 hours and then
Yep.
it's kind of gone.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, Fernando said people say bulking up affects shooting negatively, and indeed you see slender guys shoot better than muscular ones. Is it a chicken and egg situation, or is there really truth behind the argument? So does putting on muscle actually negatively impact your ability to shoot a basketball?
Yeah, no, I honestly don't know how that impacts it. I mean, we've seen pretty muscular guys on occasion be pretty good shooters, at times, and then we've seen other guys, who are extremely skinny, can't shoot at all. So I'm not sure. I would guess it's probably more of where you build that muscle up. I would think if you're building up here in the shoulders, it might make it more awkward to do that. I think the biggest thing that I've ever talked to, especially development coaches and shooting coaches, is it's repetition is what makes you a good shooter. It's finding what works for you and then drilling it and drilling it and drilling it until it just becomes what you do. And there's not a thing. Like I always think of Ray Allen, no matter where Ray Allen caught the ball, if he could get his shoulders square, it was gonna have a chance at going
Yeah.
in, and that's why he's one of the best shooters of all time. But that's all I know. It's that repetition and being balanced is a big part of it. to strength and bulking up. I could see it potentially, yeah, especially if you added a bunch of strength in one off season or something, and then you're a little strong with your shot. That could be a thing.
It would be interesting to see if there was a study done exactly on that, because you'd have to figure out a way to quantify it, and
Hmm.
it's not an exact science. But again, there that is out there that, hey,
Yeah.
you put on muscle and your shot tends to not be so great. I mean, look at Kevin Durant. His shot is beautiful and it goes in all the
Yeah.
time, and he's super. I mean, his bench press at the combine was like non-existent, right? So maybe there's something to that. This one said, would to Chicago any truth to that? So Chicago now got a $10 million and change. I want to say 10.2 million
Yep.
disabled player exception. And instantly people were saying, oh, they'll use it to sign Christian Wood. Heard anything on that, or does that make sense?
The only thing I know with the Bulls is they are, let me pull up the right number here. They're only about 5.5 million under the tax, and they do not want to pay the luxury tax. So I would say, unless there's something else in conjunction where somebody else is moving on, because even though Lonzo Ball, you get the disabled player exception, it counts towards the tax. His full salary still counts towards the tax. It all counts. There's no like tax savings that go along with any of this stuff. So I would say probably not anything to it, but I don't know. Christian Wood is still hanging out there. I was doing some calls around that situation, and nothing has changed. And we've been home for a couple days now, and it was even a couple days ahead of that we were having some conversations with folks that were, yeah, it we're staring down. He may need to take the minimum somewhere and do kind of a rehab year and see what it looks like. But they're not ready to make that decision just yet.
But Woods camp believes he's not a minimum talent, which they're
So
probably
far, yeah,
right.
which is
But
fair. Yeah.
that's what's out there right now. And so, but that's the thing. Like, if you're Christian Wood, what, like, you can get the minimum a month from now. The minimum is going to be there all the way up until the season starts.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of when do you cut it off and say, okay, we've waited long enough, that above minimum offer just isn't coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that's the thing, right? You do run into that. So and then you kind of we're down to it now, because the teams that still have exceptions left, generally they either don't have a roster spot or they don't want to go into the tax or something along those lines. So it's that does get to be a tough spot to be in.
Okay, Keith, to put you on the spot here. So on the Lakers Nation podcast today, I was talking about Summer League, and I talked about specifically Max Christie, and we were talking about whether or not he's going to be shut down now that he's got this little hip issue or whatever, and about how players get shut down in Summer League. And I said, from the fan perspective, when you're watching the game, of course, you always want to see your team win, but teams don't care so much about the final score. They're trying to find out, can a guy help us in the regular season? Is this a guy we want in the G League? They also want to see who can't cut it. They're going to find those. That's more important to them than the final score. I said, case in point, look, like I remember when the Lakers won the Summer League title, but I don't even remember who won the Summer League championship last season or the season before that or the season before that. The same is not true of NBA championships. And I threw in as an aside, I said, I bet Keith remembers, though, who won the Summer League championship. So do you happen to remember who won last year's Summer League?
All right, someone's going to have to fact check. Yeah, I know who won last year was Portland.
Okay.
Won last year, and Trendon Watford was the MVP of the Summer League championship. The year before that, it was the Kings because they beat the Celtics. The year before that, there wasn't a Summer League because that was the pandemic year. Then,
so far, you're correct on everything.
The Lakers.
There's two before you get to the Lakers.
The Grizzlies and Portland won the two before the Lakers.
Good Lord.
I think in that order. I think going backwards in that order. Grizzlies, Portland, then
you're
the
right.
Lakers. Yeah.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, I need more hobbies.
That is unreal. Like I Portland was going to be my guess for who won last season, but I very much did not remember with certainty or anything like that. That is insane that you actually got like multiple years because again, I would have landed on Portland, but that was my guess, kind of my gut. There's no way in hell I would have got Sacramento in 2021 or anything. And then to get the Grizzlies pre-COVID, like COVID was just the just mind wiped everything, right?
Yep.
Pre-COVID, it was like the blip. Pre-COVID, you get the Grizzlies. Man, that is unbelievable.
Somebody asked if I remember the MVPs. I don't remember. So they changed it a couple years ago. They changed, there's now like a tournament MVP or the final MVP.
Right.
And then there's like an overall MVP. I know with MVPs, Keegan Murray won one. David Mitchell split one with somebody 1 year. I don't remember. Brandon Clark won it the year the Grizzlies won it. And then I think the Lakers had two back-to-back, Josh Hart and Lonzo Ball.
Yep, you're right. They did. They had
But
Josh Hart and Lonzo Ball back-to-back.
MVP. I know Trendon Watford, but I don't know the game MVPs. I would guess Davion Mitchell probably the year the Kings won it because he was pretty on fire and he shut down Peyton Pritchard in that final.
It was not Davion Mitchell. It was Lewis King.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he had a huge scoring game.
But you are right that Davion Mitchell was co-MVP with Cam Thomas.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't.
The Nets in 2021.
Yeah. Yep. See, so I don't remember them all, but I remember some of it.
Dude, you remember the Summer League champs. You're nailing most of the MVPs. That's still unreal.
Somebody's now asking if I know all the G League champs. I do not. They could not tell you that. I don't even know who won it this past year. Problem with the G League championship is it happens literally right before the playoffs start. So like I'm very dialed in on the end of the NBA season at that point. I will say too, it was very funny. I was sitting with I want to say it was maybe Matt Peralta. And he said, or Daniel, maybe, I can't remember, but it was somebody, and they had said, you told them, I bet you know, Scott Agnes commented to me that you told him, I don't know who some of these guys are, but I bet Keith could tell you something.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
All those guys. Yeah. He was telling me about that. So
yes. Yeah. I was mentioning that we were commenting that as we're watching this game, he's like, oh, that was really a nice play, but I don't know who that guy is. You know, I don't know most of these guys. I went, I don't either. Keith does.
Yeah. I try to do it. And the good thing is there's a lot of ways, a lot of tools now to get information on players and see them, so it's a little easier. So if somebody who's on a summer league roster this year, I tried to go. I do before the draft. I build out my own little. It's not a draft board, but I'll put like all the guys that have potential to be drafted, and I'll go to like 20 of the different draft like experts, and I'll pull together all the names on there. And generally, the top 70 are the same, but you might get, in the bottom 30 of their top 100s, you might get some different names mixed in there. So by the time the draft rolls around, I try to have at least kind of a Rolodex of 150-ish players that I've tried to learn something about at some point. So, and then most of those guys end up on summer league teams, and a lot of these guys, that's one of the fun things about summer league is the guys who come back. It's like, oh, hey, and then you see the name, and then I'll be like, where was that guy? And you look it up. One of the coolest tools that's out there that everybody can use is Real GM. You can put any player in the search bar, and it'll pull up, and then it'll give you their stats for where they've been playing and all that stuff, and around the world. So yeah,
you can do these deep dives like Keith does. All right, Jeremy said, what do you guys think of the narrative of Masai overvaluing his assets and teams being frustrated with him? Hard bargain or being unrealistic? Well, that narrative, it's not coming from Toronto, right? This is other teams that are complaining about trying to deal with him. But nonetheless, like there's also a point where like everybody wants to win the trade, of course, but some teams will be maybe unrealistic to a point where it can be damaging to them. Have we hit that point with the Raptors now that they've let Fred VanVleet walk away?
Yeah, I don't know that it's damaging to them. Masai's always been a guy who's been he's had the rep of he drives a hard bargain. He gets a little bit of that Danny Ainge in him where he's got to win every trade, however you define winning a trade. So I think there is part of what happens with that is he's not going to give if he doesn't feel good about what's out there. So I think what happens with Masai Ujiri is you get him in a spot where he does ask a lot for his guys. But I also, based off conversations, I don't think they're ready to break this group up. So I think that's why he's asking for so much in return for guys like Siakam and OG Anunoby, and that's why they've really asked these for astronomical packages in return, and they just haven't gotten there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and look, it's kind of like with a minimum contract. Once you're that guy that takes a minimum contract, it's hard to break out of that cycle. Once you're that guy that takes a little bit less in a trade offer, teams are going to think they can get that all the time. So there is some benefit to saying, no, this is our asking price. This is what we need in order to make the move. And we're not doing it. You set that precedent in your trade negotiations. And sometimes that can actually help you down the line, even if it can lead to some frustration in the moment. So, and like you said, I don't know that the Raptors are ready to break all this up, even though we've literally been talking about them, what seems like forever, as the team that's the linchpin to everything that everybody's waiting to see what they do. They've just resisted, fully tearing it down to this point.
Still, right? Because Siakam's still in the news today. I mean, we're still getting reports of Toronto's looking to trade him. So yeah, I mean that's just something that's going to be out there, I think, for a little while.
What were teams saying about Wemby in Vegas? I didn't specifically talk to any teams about.
Yeah, I did
about Wemby. What did you get?
Yeah, just as expected. They thought he looked really good. And in one of the kind of comments that came out was from a rival team was, this is probably how it's going to be. It's probably going to be some rough games and some absolutely incredible games. And they said, we have to remember, as talented as he is, as big as he is, as unique as he is as a player, he's still a 19-year-old kid. And 19-year-old kids are just not consistent in what they do in any phase of life. And I thought that was really kind of prescient to bring it up that way, is that they're in a little bit of a spot here where San Antonio can be patient, right? They're going to keep rolling them out there, and it'll be what's going to be interesting to watch with him, and I think really fun to track and develop, is the mistakes he's making in October, November, December. Are those eliminated by the time we get into January, February, March? Like, are those out of his game? Because if they are, that's really cool, because then that means we can start to project probably a lot more rapid growth with this. I saw people saying, he could be an all-star day one, in the league and all these things. He could be. I mean, every once in a while, a rookie's at that level right out of the gate. And I'm taking out of the mix that like some the entire population of France starts voting for him or anything like that, right? But like a real true all-star, I would never project that for any rookie. I just don't think it's realistic to happen very often. But he could be. He's got so much talent. Like, he's really going to be something in the league eventually. My favorite play he made was in the second game. I wish I could remember who it was, took a 3-point shot, he blocked it, and the guy was like literally looking like, wait, how? Like, because he was like in drop coverage and blocked a pull-up 3-pointer, which is just ridiculous. Like, those are going to be the things you're going to see. And I said this, he's going to lead the league in plays where you are watching live and you rewind on the TV to be like, what just happened? Because you're not going to understand it, because we just don't comprehend him yet.
He does the cornet contest, but he can actually jump all the way up and get the ball.
It's crazy. I know that's unbelievable. Yeah,
it is. It is. All right. Soy Saucy said, which is I am saucy in Spanish. Can't wait to see how God Max Christie is going to be this season. I'm assuming they mean how good Max Christie is going to be this season. JHS was great too. He looked composed and confident. Max Lewis was great too. Can't wait to see how the Lakers are going to look. Let's get Christian Wood. You guys are awesome, by the way. Well, thank you very much. And yeah, Max Christie has indeed looked like he's shown a lot of growth from last season, and basically everything you hoped you would have seen out of him in summer league so far this year. We've seen it, and that's why I'm on the mindset, if his hip is even bugging him a little bit, or even if it's a hip issue, he's got nothing left to prove. He's done everything he needs to do. He's checked all the boxes. Move on.
All right, you want to do little prediction time here?
Sure.
So I'm gonna say to open the year, Max
Hmm.
Christie is not getting regular rotation minutes.
Uh-huh.
By Christmas, he's taking Cam Reddish's place in the rotation, and,
Oh,
and he'll
okay.
play over Cam Reddish. That's my thought. There's he's not going to start right. There's not
Sure.
bar complete disaster. There's not a path to that. But I think you'll see Cam Reddish get the early minutes, and I think Max Christie may take his spot in the rotation by the time, but right around Christmas, New Year's in that range.
Okay. That's that'll be interesting to see if that's the way it actually goes down. I've got on my depth chart Austin Reeves as of course the starting two, and then Christie as the backup. Some have got Reddish as a two though, and Darvin Ham did have some pretty positive comments on Cam Reddish recently. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see. That's going to be certainly a training camp battle to watch. But Christie, to his credit, he's worked extremely. You could see it just physically in his body, like how much work he's put in.
So it's funny, right? Your team wanted Cam Reddish forever. A lot of Celtics fans were like, why don't we go get Cam Reddish? He doesn't play. And the reality is he doesn't play. He's been on 3 teams and has lost his role on 3
Mm-hmm.
teams. It's and I don't I get accused of being a Cam Reddish hater. I don't hate Cam Reddish by any means. I honestly there are very few players that I actively dislike in the NBA, and I'm not going to get into the list of the guys that they are right now. Most of them are actually gone from the league. And there were real reasons for those
Mm-hmm.
things. But with Cam Reddish, it's just the reality is he doesn't he keeps losing his job, and there's got to be a reason for that. It's not that everybody on the Hawks, everybody on the Knicks, and everybody on the Trailblazers are morons. Like it can't be. And sometimes guys take until year 5, 6 to really figure out what their role is. I've thought for a while now, if Cam Reddish just played the Corey Brewer role, where it's I'm going to defend and I'm going to run the floor as fast as I can, he could
Mm-hmm.
be a really good player in the league because he's that kind of athlete. He's that good, but he just hasn't figured it out yet. And maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe that's not the role for him. But I just don't know. No, I actually don't hate Kyrie. Kyrie annoys me to the end of the earth, and it's he covering him was absolutely exhausting for
Mm-hmm.
2 seasons with the Celtics. But I don't hate Kyrie. He's actually people are very surprised every time I say this. He's one of my most favorite players to watch. Like
Sure.
he is just so fun. The way he can contort his body at his size to get the finishes he gets around the rim is unbelievable. I love watching Kyrie when he gets going. But yeah, yeah, there's a lot of other things I don't enjoy about Kyrie, that is for sure. But yeah, the other comments here, I gotta disagree a little bit on Jalen Hood Shafino. I was high on him going into the draft. I was a little disappointed. I thought his shot selection was a little rough. But I'm gonna say this: we shot selection is one of the easiest things to
Yep.
criticize at summer league, and often we don't know what the players have been tasked to do. I was talking to a coach this morning because I was following up on something. He was telling me, and I asked him about a different thing, and he said, actually, yeah, that guy, we told him every game we want you taking 10 off the dribble jump shots in
Mm.
summer league because that's what we want. I actually built that. I'm sorry, that was yesterday morning. I built that into the piece I wrote for Spot Track because that's sometimes what they want to see is right. We want you shooting off the dribble shots, and they look like bad shots, but that's what the player's been tasked to do. So I don't always beat up on guys for that. That said, without the full context, I thought he looked a little rough. I thought his defense was okay. I thought he hung
Yeah.
in there with that. And Maxwell Lewis, basically what I expected him to be, from what I've seen so far. I think the probably the best outside of Max Christie summer league Laker has been Colin Castleton.
Yep.
Game to game, I thought he's played really well. But yeah, all around, good summer league for the Lakers so far.
Yeah, and just to kind of close the book on the Reddish thing, I thought Ron Gutterman had a very um, appropriate comment on just kind of the NBA in general when he said in general teams will do dumb things, individual teams, but it's very rare for the entire league to do something dumb in terms of if a guy is bouncing around team to team to team to team and he's not sticking anywhere, that's not it. Once you've been to multiple teams aren't going to do something dumb. One
Uh
team
huh.
may make a mistake and get rid of a guy that they shouldn't, or have faith in a guy that they shouldn't, or whatever, and misevaluate a situation or whatever. But the league as a whole tends to actually be pretty smart in terms of how they play things.
That's a great point, and that's guarantee that's something Ron got out of a sports business classroom at
I'm
some point.
sure.
A lesson he probably learned there. But that's absolutely true. Yeah, the league doesn't generally miss over and over and over again.
Yeah.
With that.
All right. Last one we're going to do today, and we'll call it a day. Ben said, "Is there a transition to big men being a focal point for teams again? They seem to be more important than in the past few years. We did seem to go through an era where the bigs, I mean, they were considered to be dinosaurs, right? And that doesn't mean they played in Toronto, but there were literally articles being written about the big man is going the way of the dinosaur. The back to the basket big man that doesn't shoot threes, that has faded away. But now we're seeing a new generation coming up of bigs who from day one have been learning that you can't be a back, you can't be Jahlil Okafor, where your entire game is based around post play. You can't be that anymore. You have to be able to do other things. And so now that some time has passed since the back to the basket big man became less en vogue, now you've got stuff than just that. And the back to the basket game has kind of faded away a bit. So I think that's part of it too, is time has passed and players of that size have adjusted accordingly. And so therefore it's making a comeback here in the NBA.
Yeah, and I think if you said big men being focal points, obviously the ones that jump immediately to mind are Jokic and Embiid. So I think those are two guys. I think we lost Trevor for a second here, hopefully only a second. So those would be the guys that I look at here a little bit. So that's one part of it, and then I think as we go on with that, I think we end up in a spot where it turns into the big men are more role playing big men, where they put those guys in a role and ask them to play a role. Now we'll see what guys like Wembanyama, Chet Holmgren, what they develop into and become over the next several years. That's going to be something different to monitor and go with on that. But we'll see with that how it all comes. So. Somebody said, and guys, I apologize, I can't pull from the chat, so I can't pull them up like Trevor does. But AZN Pikachu says, "Can I recommend putting the front office podcast image to the bottom middle?" Yeah, we're gonna work on that. That was a new thing that Trevor put together right before the show started here. Are you guys gonna catch Oppenheimer? I know I am gonna try to see that with that. So yeah, so we'll definitely have that. I'm getting a message from my buddy Trevor is his internet quit working, so that's where he's at. So that said, we're going to end the show there, and we will call it a day on this one. We appreciate all you guys for stepping in and stopping and hanging out with us here. We will. Oh, here he is. He's back.
Right. We had a storm rolling through here, and somehow my internet just.
See, that's what I said. I just told him. I said,
out.
he just texted me and said his internet cut out. I was just getting ready to do the sign off on this. But yeah, Dave, Robert Rios wants to know, are you going to catch Oppenheimer?
I will catch it when it comes out at home, when it's like on a streaming platform. I'm not going to go to the theaters to see it. Everything that I go see in the theaters now, I pretty much, unless I want to get a babysitter, I have it has to be something to bring my daughter to, and so I don't think I'm going to bring my daughter to go see the movie that's on the atomic bomb. It's just she's not at 6. She's not ready for nuclear annihilation, all this kind of stuff. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds, the famous quote from Oppenheimer and everything. Yeah, I don't think she's ready for that one.
Yeah, probably not. But I know the former history teacher and you would like to probably watch that when it comes out.
Of course.
That may be one too. I may save for home because I'm gonna guess it's probably long. I haven't seen runtime on it, but it's probably a long movie too. And I don't do great with long movies in the theater anymore. Any list of best summer league players who are not under contract? I don't have one. Rohit Batra asked that, but that's a good thought. Maybe I'll make that list now. So if I do, I will shout you out if I remember. When I write that, I'll write your name down here and go from there. So yeah. All right.
All
Bad
right.
idea for the Spurs to tank again. Sorry, just one last super chat came in. Tank again to find a young dynamic guard for Wemby. No, I wouldn't. Just play it out now.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're bad, but there's no reason to go that direction.
Did you address this one already? I know we've talked a ton about it, but did you
Oh,
get to that one while I was out?
I did not. No, I didn't
Okay.
see it.
This one just asking about Christian Wood. Who would you rather have on center? I'm assuming it's a Lakers question, but I don't hate the idea just from the offensive side. I'm kind of partial to Biyombo if they can get him, but I don't like. There's a lot with one of your last roster spots. The guys, it makes it that much more important that the guy is a fit in terms of personality and in terms of work ethic. So I think that's something that the further down the roster you get, the more important those things are because they're not going to be getting as many minutes on the floor. Not saying Christian Wood wouldn't get minutes. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I wouldn't be against it, but I think the Lakers have some reasons why they could hesitate on going that route, and we'll see what ultimately wins out if they're able to get him, if the talent wins out, or if they kind of say, we're going to look elsewhere.
It'll be in my other summer league notebook that comes out today. I think it'll be in there. They're legitimately excited about Jackson Hayes. They're really excited to work with him and see, what he can become with that. So yeah, I don't think you're going to see. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe Christian Wood decides the Lakers are the best place for him with that, but I know they're excited about Jackson Hayes. And the reality is, center spot is something a lot of teams look at and say, we can fill it later if we really need to, with getting a guy in there. So we'll see how that goes.
All right. Appreciate you all for coming in. We'll be back on Monday with a new show. Make sure you do subscribe to the YouTube channel. And of course, follow us over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.